Just so it makes it feel a little bit better, on the way to the medal ceremony, I was actually trying to learn the national anthem. So I'm Kiwi at heart. I remember walking into the opening ceremony with the Australian team, the home team at the home Olympics, being a Kiwi, but and just thinking anything else from now is a bonus. How that happened. How that happened was we didn't recognise the difference between racing in an 8-boat fleet at home versus the style of racing required to win internationally in a 50-boat fleet. So I didn't adjust. Absolutely. It was what's best for Jenny. How do I get to my goal?
Yep.
I need to change for Australia.
They never just won a gold medal for New Zealand, for Australia. She's born here.
How did the family take it that you're going to be doing that? I'm sure they would have backed you the whole way. Oh.
I thought they did until you asked me that question.
Our latest guest is Olympic sailing champion Jenny Armstrong, who had an amazing career in sailing, representing both New Zealand and Australia. Jenny is born and bred in Dunedin and has taken her sailing career across the globe, eventually leading to representing New Zealand at the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games. Jenny then shifted to Sydney in 1996 and famously switched from the New Zealand Ferner to the green and gold of Australia. She joined Zimbabwean-born Belinda Stowell and formed a formidable sailing team out of Sydney that had their sights set on the 2000 Games. Jenny and Belinda did what many Australian teams could not do and win gold at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. Since then, Jenny was awarded the Australian Sports Medal, the Order of Australia Medal for services to sport, and inducted into the Australian Sailing Hall of Fame. Jenny, great to have you on the show. First of all, quick question. Being a Kiwi and awarded all those Australian accolades, did you ever think that you'd start your sailing career off representing Australia and winning all those awards?
Absolutely not, but I try to, just so it makes it feel a little bit better, on the way to the medal ceremony, I was actually trying to learn the national anthem. So I'm Kiwi at heart.
Yeah, we did a bit of research and seeing what you had done and making that switch from being part of the New Zealand team to going into the Australian squad. What was that sort of like for you, having to make that switch?
Probably one of the toughest decisions I've made in sport, but it was all around Belinda. And I knew I'd been to the 92 Games, finished 4th. So, and I knew where the deficits were in that campaign. So I...
on your part?
Yeah, on my part. And I knew what needed to be in place for me to have the chance to win a gold medal.
So did you race solo at the 92 Games?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So then you were going into the 470 category, you obviously had to pick up a partner for that.
Yeah, double-handed boat. So Belinda was already a world champion in a double-handed class, so I knew she had the skills. We got on really well. We both had the same goals and aspirations. The Olympics was living in Sydney. The Olympics were in Sydney, so I'd get a lot of time on the water, on the home ground advantage. And Australia was throwing a bunch of money into sailing, to Olympic sport at that time. So it was, if you can't do it with all these resources and things, then it's just not possible. So.
Because watching and hearing some of the interviews that you've done over the years, a lot of people didn't really think that you guys were good enough to even make the podium at that point. So what was the sort of, you obviously definitely had a lot of belief in you guys to definitely do that? Yeah,
so it was interesting the first week with our coach when we rocked up, and there was 10 Australian teams, 5 women, 5 men's teams. And he basically told us I was too big and my crew was too small and we should divide, split and get the right combination. But that was sort of something that sort of lit a fire under us. It was like, well, we'll show him. What does he know? He had just coached a gold and bronze medal at the previous games, but we were all out to prove him wrong. But I guess leading into that question, the reason I finished 4th in Barcelona was because I absolutely didn't believe I could win a medal. So we knew that was something I had to absolutely believe day in, day out. And I guess my husband Eric was a big part of that. So whenever I had any doubts, he would positively reinforced that I did have the capabilities. And so in those 3 years, we tried to absolutely just have that undeniable confidence in our abilities that we could get there on the day.
It's sort of something Australians innately have, eh?
A little bit more than us.
Cocky. They're cocky.
Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of get over disappointment a whole lot quicker. They don't dwell on it. But they're pretty bloody confident when it comes to sport. It's really interesting. We've already sort of smacked in a couple of points that you've already brought up. Understanding that you have a deficit. So again, this podcast is all about the mindset. And I guess one of the things that a lot of athletes have is an ability to kind of see where they're deficient, like you sort of say. What were those deficiencies in that you kind of identified that she probably didn't have? At the 94?
92 games.
92 games?
Well, it was interesting because this was all in the debrief afterwards, but my coach, they all had the belief in it, but they just hadn't instilled it into me. And they thought I did, but they just didn't. It wasn't there. So that was an interesting thing about, and probably now coaching those assumptions.
Yep.
You can't assume that you're on the same page. You need to actually put it out there.
Do you think it was an age thing? Because you would have been about 22 at that time. Do you reckon that would have been a maturity sort of age thing that sort of you didn't have the belief at that point, or was it something else?
Possibly, but I guess if I haven't been made aware of it, then I mean, plenty of 21-year-olds win medals, so I don't think it was an age thing. I think it was probably we didn't see it in the program, or it wasn't. It was an assumption that it was there, but it wasn't.
So do you think heading into the 2000 games, having a really good support crew like your husband Eric, do you definitely think that was the difference to get you going into second gear, third gear, and really knowing that you guys have a really good shot?
I knew going into that games we were ranked number 1 in the world, and we'd won a bunch of regattas, so we were one of the favourites going in. So I knew going into the games that what we had to do was just show up and just do our normal thing. We sort of used this analogy. I think Belinda was freaking out a couple of days before the games and was like, no, hang on. We've done the work. We've got our toolbox. And all we need to do now is show up on the racecourse and pick the right tool for the right moment in the race. So that was kind of our analogy that we used during the event. We don't need to do anything special. We just need to do our thing.
So take us back to early days. What sort of got you into sailing? Because it's not, well, I don't think it is anyway. Like a very traditional sort of sport that you sort of get into. So what was it like? Was it a parents getting you into it? Was it friends? How did you sort of fall into the sport?
My parents sailed, so they used to be trampers, and then when they had kids, they realised they couldn't carry us around the mountains, so they were looking for sports they could do as a family. So they started just getting bigger and bigger boats, and we went sailing with them and racing, and then when we got sick of being with them, we sort of branched out into our own boat. So I'm one of 3 girls, and we were all sailing dinghies down at Ravensbourne.
Nice.
Competing with the boys.
So then what got you to the point of, okay, I'm legitimately going to really give this a good crack? Because was there much funding, or was there much money in the sport back then at all? Was there a career path at all? Was it just... I distinctly remember when I was 13 wanting to go to the Olympic Games. I don't know where that came from, but that was just something I had. And friends at school who I see now remember me doodling Olympic rings on my school diary. Who would have thought, eh? But at that stage, there weren't even women in the Olympics for sailing. It was all open classes, so women were eligible to compete, but no women-only classes.
So what about was there a stage in your life, earlier on, where you sort of realised that maybe your skill base was a little bit better than everybody else's, or you had something that was slightly different to maybe what your 2 sisters have or didn't have?
I think they're actually better sailors, better more talent. But I think where I had was that grit and determination that I was going to get there no matter what. And I think coming from the regions, you kind of have that innately because they're kind of against the world. So you need to do something better and tougher. And I think a lot of our regional sailors are part of our Olympic team because of that, because of the isolation. They just have to do it themselves.
So did you have like a full-on full-time coach at all prepping you for this type of thing, or was it just?
I never had a coach until I was selected for the Olympic Games.
Right.
Oh, wow, really?
We'd occasionally have little clinics or little weekends here and there.
But so you were all just self-taught?
Just
Wow.
figure it out type stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can I ask them what makes a great sailor?
A great sailor is someone. So sailing's kind of a chess on water is kind of the analogy we use. There's a big physical component, and that has developed over the last 10, 20, 30 years. They're actually proper athletes now, not just people who go sailing. So there's an athletic component, so you need to be as fit as you can, but you still need to have that decision making. So it's that experience of decision making, being adaptable, to change it up on the fly. So it's all that decision making, it's that grit, it's that recovering from mistakes quickly, moving on to the next thing. So
Environment?
adapting
Like
to the environment.
Wind,
Yep.
wind, swell, all that type of stuff.
Exactly, adapting to just stuff that happens on the race course. You might be delayed for 4 hours and sitting out on the race course. We were just at the World Champs and we were on the water for 8 hours in the day and did 2 races. So you just got to be ready and not let anything sort of knock you off your path.
Out of all those sort of skills that you did just mention, is there a particular skill in there that was probably that benefited you the most, that you excelled in out of anywhere else? Because you've said that these days they're more athletic and et cetera. But then you moved on to you sort of need to think about things, you need to judge things, think on your feet. Was that probably an area that you were probably stronger in than, let's say, the physicality?
I think I was always my role in the boat was a big decision making part of it, and I think probably one of my skills now, then and now still, because I still compete occasionally, is to be able to separate that decision making from your physicality, so you can keep the physical going, and then keep the decision makings going, and then manage the body separately.
Yeah.
So when your body's getting tired or wearing out, you can still make those smart decisions that will get you around the course faster. Because sailing's it's actually really simple. It's just sail shortest course, the fastest. That's it.
Can we talk a bit about the different types of sailing? What makes them different, the different craft that you sail?
Yeah, because I was researching and when I saw that you got 4th at the 92 games, and I was like, what in the 470? I was like, well, your name wasn't there, and then I had to look and there was a thing that said Europe, which I was okay, what is this thing? And there's just all these different categories, so it'd be quite cool to understand what maybe some of those categories are, maybe the ones that you've competed in.
So I guess they categorise it at the games. It's this single-handed classes, double-handed classes, and then the types of boats within them. So I competed in the single-handed class, which was the Europe dinghy. Just one person in a boat and off you go. For the Olympics, you only select one per nation. So it's very cutthroat to get the spot for starters. And then I moved on to the 470. So that was 2 crew on board and 3 sails. So you have a mainsail, a jib, and then a spinnaker for downwind. So it's a lot more technical and a lot more tuning involved with that, as well as the teamwork within the boat, just getting the boat around, and then the comms and decision-making and everything around that.
So I'd like to know, sorry, you go.
Yeah, and distances. So is that determined by the course where you're sailing? Or is there a defined, this is an 800-metre race or 8-kilometre race or whatever?
So it's all laid out in the sailing instructions, but there is a set course with marks that are anchored.
Okay, that's standardised around the world?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And then they'll just tell you how many laps to do of the course,
Yeah.
and they'll lengthen or shorten the course to get the time roughly the target time for the race.
Rules?
Lots of rules, big, thick rule book, yeah.
And so
It's sort of self-policing too, so if...
like a courtesy.
Yeah, so if you make a mistake and you can do a 720 to exonerate yourself, or you can protest and then go and you have a little hearing afterwards and
then
someone else
lose
decides
that
you're right or wrong.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a bit of risk management around that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Going back to getting involved in the sport and knowing that you could make it to higher honours. What was the main driver for you? I mean, I know you said that you were, when you're 13 that you wanted to make it to the Olympics, but going around the whole there's no really career path for you back then anyway. Like, what was the driver for you to represent New Zealand?
I guess initially it started was I like beating the boys, so that was a big driver, and at that time there weren't that many girls competing, so that was always been a driver, still is these days. When I look back, I think my whole career, and still now that I'm coaching, I just want to see how good my best is and if I can measure that against the world's best. I had the belief that my best would be the best in the world, so I really just wanted to see if it is. So it was never really about the gold medal or going to the Olympics or representing New Zealand. It was just seeing how good I could be.
Did at any point, once you did make it to the Olympics, was there then now I want to try to get the medal, or did that just come in due course?
It just sort of came in due course. As we improved and moved up the fleet, then it became a potential reality. But I was always trying to focus on just being the best we could be. And I probably didn't actually realise it until I got the gold medal.
Yeah.
I was holding it in your hand, and then actually it's not, this is cool, very cool, but it's not about that. So for me, the gold medal actually just represents me nailing the best performance. And the memories from the games, I remember walking into the opening ceremony with the Australian team, the home team at the home Olympics, being a Kiwi, but and just thinking anything else from now is a bonus. This is already cool and worth it. And so we both sort of said that to each other, and then we went out in the course and did the bonus stuff, which was demonstrating our best performance on the day.
Yeah. What was, when I've looked at the racing side of things, is it over a period of time, like a course of days that you're racing for? So I've looked at it, and you have to get the lowest points or something along those lines to then win. How does that sort of work?
Yeah, so sailing's the worst sport to go to the Olympics for because it goes for such a long period of time, so you don't actually get to experience the games properly. But it typically goes over about 6 days. The format's changed a little bit from Sydney Games, but it was 11 races, and then first is 1 point, second's 2, etc.,
right,
etc.
okay. Yeah.
And then you can drop your worst performance. So you take your 10 best races.
Oh, okay.
The format's a wee bit different now, but that's what it was when we were there.
And lower score wins.
Lower score wins, yeah.
Like golf, yeah, sort of. yeah. So then, when you finished at the Barcelona Olympics, you didn't go to the 96 games.
No, I lost the trials. I was ranked number 1 in the world and lost the home trials.
Oh.
Wow.
Whoa.
So talk us through how that sort of happened to, yeah.
How that happened. So how that happened was we didn't recognise the difference between racing in an 8-boat fleet at home versus the style of racing required to win internationally in a 50-boat fleet. So I didn't adjust well enough and was beaten on the day.
Yeah, man. Was there a point in time where you realised, in the race?
Over the week?
Yeah, sorry, over the week.
Yeah,
You're just like,
it was.
this is a bad idea. Well,
Yeah.
I've got it wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was,
Were you competing in a team at that point?
no, that was a single-handed boat, the same one.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you realised, during the first couple of days that it was over.
It was, yeah.
Wow.
But what did they say? When there's a silver lining.
Yes.
So out of that, I got asked to join a women's ocean racing
Yeah.
crew, show up on the first day, and I meet Belinda.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
How that-
sort of
Yeah.
Did
ways
you
up.
see it that way at the time? Because
No.
I'm a piss poor loser. I hate losing.
no, it was devastating. But then I went straight over to a World Cup and won it. So
All right.
yeah,
It always makes it better, eh? When
little
you've got
bit.
the next event to, I want to make this right
Yeah.
type stuff.
What was going through your head when you did realise that the dream of '96, was it Atlanta that year, was over?
I don't know. It was pretty devastating. Just I was part of a squad of different countries, so I was part of that squad. So we'd all committed to each other to help prep each other for the game. So I just got straight back into that and, wanted to show the world that I could actually sail, and they were just damn lucky I wasn't going to the games.
Because it's more you've spent three and a half years trying to get back there, and it's gone within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. It's like with any sport, with a World Cup, like the All Blacks. They do all this prep for 4 years and then it's gone. So, yeah, it must have been really tough for you, and probably the couple of months afterwards.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, it was probably harder when the Olympics is on. So I was hiding in South Africa at that stage, and they only had like wrestling and synchronized swimming or something. So to experience the Olympics from far away, not having sailing front and center, was probably
Made it easier.
Made it a little bit easier. Yeah.
And you get to watch it as well, because according to you, when you are sailing for 6-7 days, you don't get to watch any Olympic events.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is interesting, because kind of what separates an athlete from average Joe Blow is that determination, or there's something internal that kind of flips the switch, and it always happens in disappointment or failures.
Yeah.
You can go one or two ways. You can kind of go,
Yeah.
what a bugger, that sucks. Yeah, knew I wasn't any good at this, so I think I'll try something else. Or it's have a bit of a moan and groan about it, and then jump back on really, really quickly.
And I think it's really important, and that's what we try and do with all our sailors now, is to have a plan B, have a what if, at least the first move, so you don't fall it, or you at least have something to do when you're falling into that pole.
Yep.
It's not just all riding on that performance.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, is there much money involved in the sport? Like if let's say you're competing now, is there the funding and things like that behind the sport at the moment, or is it still sort of lagging behind?
No, it's a much more. If you're top 10 in the world, you're pretty well funded, and your job's just to stay there.
Yeah.
To maintain that funding. So, for example, when I went to the games in Barcelona, after the selections, I got $3,000 to run my campaign.
$3,000.
So I was working,
Yes.
but it's a completely different time. And
Yes.
now everyone's professional, everyone's full time. You're competing against nations. Everyone's doing that at the top level. So it's a different game. You need to do it full time now.
Right. And as you as a coach now, are you having to get that out of who you train now? If they're wanting to really make the next jump, you have to sort of push them to really think like a professional and act like a professional?
Yeah, so we're trying to do that, introduce those concepts at junior and youth level.
Yeah.
And then just keep them developing as they move up into the Olympic classes and into the NZL sailing team. So they've got that base of knowledge that they're just working on improving as they go through.
Yep. Because New Zealand's always had, I was talking to Phil about this earlier, like we've had so many great sailors.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the America's Cup obviously at the top, but I mean, I looked at all the gold medals and silver medals, bronze medals over the years, and it always seems to be a common theme that there's always a New Zealand team in there.
Why? Why do you think that is? In this country, we sort of produce bloody good sailors.
Isn't that the thing? We win a lot of medals sitting down. That's a Kiwi thing. I think the country lends itself to getting people on the water, and I think we just have a love for it and the passion for it, and I think that's just shines through. You see how many people are sailing, particularly in Auckland. There's yachts everywhere, all different shapes and sizes, and I think it's just born of that.
After '96, you did allude to you went to the world champs, and that's when you ran into sort of Belinda. Did it take much convincing for her and to then start your duo and start to get look to Sydney in 2000?
So we joined this yacht and sailed from Southampton to Australia. So we got to know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
And we were the dinghy sailors that were brought on board to try and just bring that extra level of intensity to the boat. And because the women didn't have as much ocean racing experience, this was our kind of practice round for the round the world race. Unfortunately, the team, the funding didn't come through. So at the end of it, Belinda and I are sitting in Sydney wondering what to do next. And she had a 470 there. So we just spent, while the campaign was sort of gently falling apart, we just spent afternoons sailing and just having fun. And then after a few weeks was, a little chat, shall we give this a go? What do you think? And the answer was yes straight away, because we both were motivated. And then how do we make this work? Because one of us isn't Aussie.
Was she Australian?
Yes, she's Australian. Her mum's Australian.
Ah, right.
Yeah,
okay.
she just grew up in Zimbabwe.
Right. So then, how do you then become Australian?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was literally growing up. It was if you're born in that country, you represent that country, and that is it. Obviously, not the case.
It's tricky to change, and I think it's harder now. But all you have to do is live there, get your permanent residency, and then get both national bodies to sign off, both Olympic committees, World Sailing, and the IOC to sign off.
Wow! So you had 4 or 5 different organisations that you had to
get ticked off.
that you had to go through,
and you need citizenship as well.
How long did that take? 2 years?
I got it a little bit fast tracked, but I got it about a year out from the games.
Yeah. Far out.
Wow. Okay. So and knowing that in 1999, you still didn't know for sure that you could still represent Australia, even though 2000's coming up and you need to make it. Were you guys competing together in the years leading up to it for representing Australia?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
How was the decision to turn your back on New Zealand?
Turn my back. Wow.
or decide to go with Australia? Not.
It's not easy leaving. I'm a Kiwi girl.
Yeah.
Born and bred. But if I hadn't have done it, I wouldn't have achieved this goal, because I needed Belinda.
Yeah,
and all those other resources around me. So.
Because it's interesting, you hear Steve Williams has done like a podcast, or he did an interview, and him and Tiger Woods were the best of mates, like best man at each other's weddings, all that type of stuff. And Tiger Woods made a decision that it was not going to be with Steve Williams that he would have on his bag, and he went somewhere else, and now hardly ever spoken to each other. Was there a little bit of that where you're like, I'm driven, this is the best way for me to potentially be the best I can possibly be with this person, just so happens that they're in Australia? Was that kind of the mindset as opposed to?
Absolutely. It was what's best for Jenny. How do I get to my goal?
Yeah.
I need to change for Australia.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that makes it a little bit more tolerable for me to handle.
It still bothers me a little bit deep down. But
I just think it's an incredible story. I think it's
Yeah.
an unbelievable story that not many people sort of know about. Especially for me, it wasn't until you were in here training that somebody else told me actually, which is, I guess, a tribute to you and the humbleness of it all. Is somebody else told me. So, lady there's won a gold medal for New Zealand, for Australia, and she's born here.
How did the family take it that you're going to be doing that? I'm sure they would have backed you the whole way. Oh.
I hope. I thought they did until you asked me that question. Yeah, they were fine with it. I mean, they knew it was the right choice for me. It still bothers them, but you can't really argue with the result.
And how did New Zealand sport or Sailing New Zealand, how did they take it?
So they gave me permission to sail for Australia, which was really good of them, especially since I'd competed at the Olympics for New Zealand. I think when I won gold, it was a little bit, we'll take half of that. But no, it was all good. Yeah.
In the lead up to Sydney 2000, what was the training like? How intense was the training? And was at that time, even though you guys were number one?
Not the whole time, only in the last 6-9 months to the games.
Yeah. So were you guys so driven, even though you were the best in the world at what you do, to take that gold?
To remember, I said there was 5 in the squad, and only 1 goes to the games. We won the selection trials over 3 regattas on a countback.
Oh, really?
So it was rough.
Tight.
Wow.
And that was on the base. The first regatta we had completely fluffed, and we were 3rd. So it was nearly over at that stage. And then we kind of regrouped, and the next 2 regattas were in Sydney. So the next one was a little one, so there wasn't a chance to get a big point spread. So we were like, the best we can do is just try and win it and cut down some of the damage. And then the next regatta was a big regatta with 40 or 50 boats on the race course, and that was our chance too. But it literally came down to the last race of that last regatta, and we sailed a good race. We sailed in from that race not actually knowing the points or anything, sort of saying to ourselves, well, we did everything we could, saying all the right things, and we got to shore and found out that we'd won.
Wow.
And but then you kind of, it's obviously a big relief because that's something you need to tick off to go to the Olympics. But then after that, it's not that struggle to get there. Now it's how do we best prepared to sail at the games.
How far out from that was from the Olympics?
It was in the December before the...
December 2000, so...
99.
99, sorry. Right, okay, so then you did have quite a few months leading up, I'd imagine, to sort it out and get focused again. Yeah,
and we were lucky because there is a men's team as well, Australian men's team, sailing the same boat. So they were part of our sort of tight team, and we travelled together and trained together. So that was really good for us.
Did it matter that it was in Australia? Like, does it matter to know the course better than other people?
Yes. Yeah. Especially Sydney Harbour, it's not a straightforward place to sail. So the more experience you have on that, you just learn sort of the playbook of each wind direction and each course location. So you don't have to, you just know it. You don't have to think it and invent it all the time.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of pressure then being in Australia and representing Australia to then try pull off a gold?
It's interesting because sailing is not that big a deal in Australia, and at that time the sailing team had not done well for a number of years, so it was, and we were kind of separated from the Olympics. We were in our own little sailing village, Australian sailing village, so we were quite out of it, and it wasn't until we started doing well when the media sort of realised that, we better pay attention to these guys.
They did well in the swimming, eh? Was it swimming that year?
Yeah.
They just dominated. Well, that Olympics, I should say.
Yeah, so it's all... we used to watch the swimming in the evenings.
Yeah.
As a team.
So you got your sort of 15 minutes of fame when in the lead up to them winning the gold medal.
Yeah. And we were really lucky that our Our medal ceremony was one of the only medal ceremonies that people could just go to. They didn't need a ticket. So it was at the Opera House, the steps of the Opera House. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, cool.
And at night, crowds of people.
Goosebumps going back there now?
I've been back there with Belinda since, and it's real nice. Yeah, yeah, nice memories.
And how did it feel? Eventually, you said before that, it was quite nice, obviously having the gold medal in my hand, and you realised it. But what did it feel like? Was there a lot of emotion? Was there a lot of relief? Yeah, with that.
So sailing's interesting because it was 2 days before we got our medal.
Oh, right.
So we kind of finished.
A bit of time to come down from the high.
And then we go and they do a bunch of the sailing medals together. So it's kind of a weird experience, but I just remember going to the medal ceremony, still trying to learn the national anthem.
Did you sing it?
The main bits. And then just enjoying the whole experience, and the men's 470, Australian men's 470 won as well. So we were able to sort of experience with our teammates and that had been along for the ride. So it was pretty fun. Yeah, it's pretty great. Just mostly that satisfaction, but job well done.
Yeah, yeah. After you won in Sydney, you competed at a World Championships the year after, 2001. You got silver. And then what was it after that? Was it done? Were you guys, how did you sort of finish your career at that point, or did you carry it on?
So we did go to the Athens Games.
Right, okay.
And completely loved it. So, that didn't go so well, but it probably made us appreciate Sydney even more for everything that had gone right and how right you have to have everything.
Are the margins small between first and 14th?
The margins are small, and probably Athens highlighted our biggest weakness, which was the lighter air. Right. And that was much less wind. Yep. And that was definitely highlighted. And then, once it starts going wrong, it's quite hard to turn it around.
Yep.
So conditions do, obviously conditions do play a big part. So I didn't realise, but is Sydney quite a windy sort of destination, is it, compared to Athens?
At the time of the Olympics, it was,
right.
Yeah. Right. So ideally you want to be all round.
Yeah.
But that's what you're aiming for. But you'll always have people who are stronger in different conditions than others, or maybe they're a bit lighter or heavier, so that suits different conditions better.
Yeah.
So it's just you're trying to get that all-round package, but it doesn't always work.
So your physiology has a bit to do with it as well, like your physical makeup and.
Yeah, well, each boat sort of has an optimum size and.
Got you. If you're over
weight.
it or under it.
Yeah. So you're trying to manage all that as well, and just get to the start line in the best combination.
That's quite interesting, eh?
So at Athens, was that just at that point you and Belinda were like that's you guys done, or is it?
After Athens, I was done.
Yeah.
Yeah. She went on and sailed with someone else in the London Games.
Oh, 2012.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Man, so there's longevity in this sport.
Yeah, that's a long time.
There is, because experience counts for a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you decided that after that was you done.
I was done.
Yeah.
I'd been doing it for, God, I don't know how long. I wanted to have babies and have a life, and yeah.
And you've achieved your dream of getting a gold medal, which is quite cool. So now you're into coaching. What has that sort of been like for you to be on the other side and to give advice and progress a whole bunch of athletes?
I have a whole bunch of new respect for coaches.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think I've transitioned from thinking I sort of said it, I joined the TR Patanga program with High Performance Sport. And I think through doing that program, I switched from being an athlete pretending to coach to being a an actual
Coach.
coach who was an athlete. So it's just thinking differently and always thinking, how can I help? What's the...
Can we talk about that program?
Yeah.
So it was a pilot program when you went through it? Is that right?
We were
Or
in
is
the
it still-
first cohort.
Yeah.
It's still going up and strong. I think they're up to the 4th.
Okay. And so what makes it different? How did you get from the mindset of an athlete to a mindset of a coach? And is that what they help you with?
Yeah, for me it was just confidence, mostly confidence. I have the skills, I have the knowledge. It's the confidence to bring it and teach it and show it. And, so I think that program was really key for me, sort of realising that I do know this stuff and I've just got to get
Who
out
helps
there.
you do that though in the program? Like, have they got psychologists there, nutritionists? What's the makeup of it?
So every residential was different, but I think the biggest strength was just the group of women coaches who are all from all different sports. But at the end of the day, coaching is just about people and communication, and you're all trying to get people in their right frame of mind so they can show up at their start line or on the field or whatever to do their best performance.
Yeah, that's interesting, eh? So it's probably more of a networking thing.
Absolutely.
Where you're amongst
Yeah.
others that are in the same situation, sharing the same, here's some great stuff that happened, here's some not so great stuff happened, and then the learning comes from that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that sharing. And I mean, I have a mentor that I still catch up with now, and also all the women from the program, we're all pretty tight. And
Yeah, very cool.
it's nice to have people to lean on outside your sport as well,
Yeah.
just outside because you can get kind of stuck in the weeds of sailing and not sort of see the bigger picture.
So what do you work on with your athletes that you're coaching now? Is it you coach them physically and their mindset and things like that? So yeah, I guess what in terms of your coaching, what is your coaching style with them?
As you've probably get that sailing's quite complicated. There's quite a bit to it, but I guess my kind of philosophy is and it depends which level you're coaching, if it's junior, youth, or the senior women. But
Are you coaching all ages, are you?
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So I look after the national youth squad, and the Olympic development women, and my other role is women's sailing manager.
For New Zealand, right? Not
yachting-
Australia. No.
Yes, I'm back. Don't worry. For now. So I guess with my senior women, it's just identifying their work-ons. So the critical few is what we call it. So what are the critical few things that if we improve are going to make the biggest difference
impact
to your performance? And that changes, but so a lot of that's around, I'm just trying to think of one athlete, but one is like around starting, routines and how we approach the starting, because that's key for the race. Another one is performance under pressure. How do I get to the right frame of mind?
Are there problems with ego when you're looking at critical things that need to shift and you're with an athlete who doesn't think they need to shift?
I haven't come across that because it's a conversation with the two of us, and we think about it separately first, and then we come together.
Cool.
And
Even that
usually
process is quite
we've
cool.
got pretty close to the same
Being
things.
on par with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the more mature the athlete is, the more, that
Honest.
open, honest conversation. So it's not a personal thing, it's just conversations about performance. And we're both there with the same motivation, is to find the things that are going to help them improve. I think if it comes from that place, it's okay.
It lands more, eh?
Yeah.
I have been in situations, boys teams, men's teams, it's like, man, you're shit. Fix it. Don't. Okay, thanks. Thanks for
know
the
I'm
coaching.
shit,
Yeah, no, they were shit. No, we lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to fix it. It's
Yeah.
like, oh man, that's a conversation that kind of went nowhere. That seems a whole lot more productive to
Well, I guess my coaching philosophy is also I back you 100%. I will do my best, absolute best, and I'll screw up.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I come at it. And if I screw up, and I'll continually learn to improve my coaching, but also, to learn to support you better. So I think if it comes from that place of, from that kind of place of I've got your back, I'll support you 100%, then you can have those open, honest conversations.
Yeah. So right at the start, you kind of mentioned once you'd won, the biggest part from becoming a gold medalist was actually having somebody believe in you or believing in yourself. Does that happen? It must happen with your athletes now, the people that you coach now, where you can see they've got everything that they need to win, but they just can't see it or they don't see it. And so how do you kind of combat that, or how do you attack that when you've got somebody who just is lacking in confidence and you have the belief but they've kind of lost the confidence?
That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part with coaching, and I think I was thinking about this last night actually. I think it starts from, first of all, them being aware of how they are feeling and so they're aware that they're not maybe in the optimum space to perform, and then trying to figure out what is the optimum for them, like what that looks like, and then how to get there, and then I guess how to get back to there so that's probably the hardest part for coaching, I think. But I think first of all they need to understand what their best frame of mind or mindset is for them to compete first.
Yeah. Man, I'm learning something.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Are you constantly having discussions with your athletes all the time about that sort of stuff? To keep
the
them
belief.
the belief
The
and
confidence.
confidence, keep them in check and, get them ready.
Yeah, and I think particularly with female athletes, I think you need that constant reinforcement for confidence and, you're on the right track, it's going well. I think that's really important. And I probably know that from myself, from sailing, that having that was really key part of my sailing.
Is that the same with junior athletes, or is your coaching style tweaked slightly to benefit them? Because I can imagine those the conversations that they're having that you've mentioned, maturity, senior athletes, you find a middle ground where you eventually get there at some point, but maybe junior athletes it might be slightly different.
Yeah, I think you're coaching for different ages and stages, constantly adapting that and how they're feeling and what they're receptive to. Or if you're just flapping your gums but it's not going in, then you need to do something different.
Do you find that challenging at some points, having to adapt with your coaching all the time? Because you look at, like, let's say the All Blacks, if you're Ian Foster or Steve Hansen, that you're coaching, majority of them are, their late 20s, early 30s that have been doing it for a long time. But it seems like for you're coaching people from various ages that are coming in at different levels.
I actually think it's a good challenge. I think the best coaches can coach at all the levels. I think you can teach someone. I often teach people how to sail. So then that's actually really lovely because you get to see kids experience things for the first time, and then you realise that that first initial time you go out and you boat yourself. And I think sailing's the best fun you can have. So the more people can do it, the better. But I think I like the challenge of adapting for each age and stage. And I actually had some other coaches come out in the boat with me and just observe a session, and they noticed that I was just doing it innately. So I think, and I didn't realise that, but I think just with your experience, you try your best to give that sailor what they need in that moment. They're critical for you for that minute. That's going to make the biggest difference to their day, their week, their year.
I'm really, there's certain sports that I'm really into, and so when you turn up to a rugby field, for example, and it's like, I don't know, there's a kid who's 5 and he just stands out. There's something that sort of stands out to to you about that person? Does that happen in sailing, where there's innately something that somebody's got, the results might not sort of reflect it, but does that happen often? I guess the recruitment of the next sort of superstars.
I think you could see, it's really interesting how people sit in a boat. So there'd be some sailors who, as soon as they jump in a boat, and probably my son's one example, he's just how he sat in the boat when he was just beginning was just like, oh, that's
natural.
That's it. Yeah. So you can see it. I'm a big believer, because I was not a very good junior sailor, that results at junior does not determine your bigger path.
Yep.
So when I'm doing my junior work in the juniors, I think the mid fleets, back of the fleets, are just as important as the people winning. And the key thing I think lots of sports are struggling with this is just keeping them in the game long enough to realise their potential.
Is it a big struggle with sailing at the moment, is trying to keep as many young people in it?
So part of my role is that we start at 30% of women participating in sailing, and at the top end I need 50%.
Oh, wow.
So the Olympic team's made up 50% women, 50% men. So I think it's a struggle across the board with lots of sports, and sailing has its own challenges because it's quite a high, it's not cheap
Cash.
sport.
Yeah, because we had Rebecca Green in our last podcast, and for her it was, a lot of people getting into athletics and whatever and running and stuff, they were just, they get to a certain age and they were just falling off. Like they got to 14, 15, 16 and then they were done because they didn't really have the courage, they didn't have the belief. And also I think the when you're on, when we played rugby or whatever, it was like, if you stuff up in rugby, you got to go run, and it's sort of like a bad thing to punishment to run. And so she's definitely seen, and so she saw that issue that in athletics and with running is that it's just declining because I think there's not the belief with some kids and trying to get to that next stage, which I can imagine, and as you said as well, that sailing is. There's quite a lot of money that you have to sort of put up at the start sort of to get going.
And I also think sometimes in high performance sport we forget that it's actually meant to be fun.
Yeah.
And that fun first has to be front of mind, because it is a long road to the games if you even make it. But if you're not having fun, it's what's the point? So I think some coaches forget that.
Yep.
And just get a bit too carried away, and parents.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I think she found when she was over in America that, and at uni, was it University of Miami or whatever, that it was the coaching style, because it was all about money at the end of the day, and it was
performance based on money, money based on performance.
Yeah.
And you're gone. If we don't think you're good enough, and whatever, that pushed her away, and she got better when she came back here because the coaching style was went back to the old. I just want to have fun and
found her passion again.
Yes.
That's what she said. She said, man, if I wasn't at this level, I would still be running because I love running. And I think maybe that was sort of her message, I think, with trying to develop the sport so that it's an ongoing thing after school or after a certain age. It's like, man, when it's your passion, you do it because you love it. And I think she made that point with athletics, is that's sort of what they need to focus on, is actually making it or helping people live out their passion.
Yeah.
And I see it a lot with Wakarama, for example. You can be 8 or you can be 80. People just love being out on the water.
Yeah.
And it works. And they have the ability, if you can pick up a paddle and put it in the water and pull, and you're in the game. Yeah, you're in the game. And
it's the community around it too.
Correct.
is the big thing. My daughter's just taken up rowing. I don't understand it, but there's a great bunch of girls, and they all get up at 5 a.m. and they go rowing and work hard, and she just loves it. And I think, I'm guessing a lot of it is to do with the group rather than the actual activity.
And shared experiences.
Exactly.
All doing the same stuff.
Is there a good crew here in Dunedin? Because when I've driven out around, Andy Bay and all that sort of stuff, I was it like last week or the week before, I just saw a whole bunch of them just sailing out there, right? I mean, it was a wee bit windy, but there was so many boats that were out there. So I feel like there must be some sort of quite a good community here in Dunedin.
There is a good community. Dinghy sailing's not so big at the minute in Dunedin, so that's something we want to keep working on. But there's always there's a bunch of yacht clubs here and a lot of people who love sailing, so it's still a good place to sail.
Yeah. There's a guy, Pete Graham, who, because I live real close to the harbour, not far away from him. And I see him on, man, it's a race car with a sail. It's super, super quick. What is the name of that boat? It's on foils. It's on a foil, I think.
Yeah, so that's a Wasp. He's sailing.
All right. That is super quick.
That foiling has changed the game a lot. Yeah.
As far as like a spectator sport is concerned, do you mean change the game?
It's just it's nearly a whole different sport within the sport. Yeah. So it's the boats that fly above the water, like the America's Cup boats and the Sail GP boats. But that's accessible to anyone now. Can go wing foiling or wind foiling or.
Yeah, because I remember seeing I'm probably showing my age, but I can remember going and watching KZ7 and going, man, that's super, super quick. Yeah. In comparison to what you see now, it's like, Jesus, that's a snail.
Exactly.
Snail race to a turtle, bloody racing here.
Yeah, it's just that technology's moved on.
Yeah.
On so
much.
much.
So much more fun to watch that Sail GP.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm going to Christchurch. I want to go watch it.
Cool.
It looks super, super cool. Yeah.
It is very cool. You'll love it.
Yeah.
Is there what's your coaching aspirations? What do you want to do eventually?
What's the future? What does that look like?
Probably circles back to what I said earlier, just see how good I can be.
Yep.
That's probably the underlying. And I always think when I'm 80, sitting on my rocking chair on the balcony, I don't want to regret not taking an opportunity. So that's kind of how I ended up sailing for Australia. But I try and take on, if an opportunity comes up, I want to be bold enough to take it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Advice? Any advice for up-and-coming sailors? People interested in sailing, but a little too scared to give it a try?
I mean, sailing's the best fun, so just give it a go. Anyone can do it. You don't have to get carried away like I did, but I guess up-and-coming sailors, enjoy it, love it, learn the craft, be able to analyse what you're doing and just enjoy it, sail a lot of boats and then see where it takes you.
And finally, what sort of you do in your downtime? Apart from sailing, what sort of what keeps you going? Apart from being a sailor and a sailing coach.
Coaching's not. I used to sail, and I do have a boat here, so I do actually go sailing just for fun. And I'm trying to eye up a Worlds at some stage.
I was going to say, is there a thing for you to sail for fun?
That is fun. Because I still want to beat the boys. So I'm going to try and eye up a World Masters Worlds and go and win it outright is my goal. So I just got to find the right time and space to do that. But I do I love being in the mountains. I love hiking. Just being in the outdoors, I guess. Anything in the outdoors is my thing.
Finally, sorry, one more question. With the World Masters, will you just be doing it solo?
Yeah, that's a single-handed boat. It's actually the boat I coach as well.
Okay.
So I have. So it will just be me.
Oh, okay.
It's less complicated. Just go out and do it yourself.
I thought you might want to get the Sydney 2000 Dream Team back together again to compete if there was a Masters event for.
We have talked about it, but there's a lot more involved in getting that sorted.
Oh no, I'll look forward to sort of to hearing that one day, and hopefully that does happen. But you haven't got any more questions, Phil? No, that was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome, Jenny. It was great to actually hear the ins and outs of sailing, your journey, what you're currently doing as well, and obviously what you could be doing later on in the future. So really enjoyed having you on the podcast today.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Cool.